السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So, alhamdulillah, we've been talking a lot about the idea of inward mindset, outward mindset, where the inward mindset is a focus on just the self and fulfilling our own personal goals and dreams and not really being worried about anybody else. Whereas the outward mindset is an inclusive mindset that it's concerned about the self, but it's also equally concerned about everybody else. And that, of course, is the prophetic mindset. Love for your brother what you love for yourself, and taking action on that. Now, I want us to turn that conversation to the inward conversation. So far we've talked about how we engage with others and deal with others and so forth. But inside of us, we have a conversation or a debate going on between our nafs and what I'll call our fitrah. So our fitrah is the way that we are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's that higher self. It's what calls us to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to do what we're supposed to do. That sense that we have of what is right and how we should conduct ourselves and how we should behave, that is ultimately our fitrah, that consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on the opposite end, we have our nafs. And our nafs is what calls us to our lower base desires, the things that are what shaitan is whispering to, that indulgence in whatever we feel like doing just because it might feel good or it seems to be entertaining or fun at the moment. That's our nafs. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us in the Quran in Surah Al-Kahf. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلَا تُطِعْ مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ وَكَانَ أَمْرُهُ فُرُطًا. And pay no heed to the one whose heart we have rendered heedless, filled with ghafla, this sense of heedlessness, of all remembrance of us, of all remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he's followed only his own desires, and whose case has gone beyond all measure. So this is that state that we have to be very conscious about, entering in a state of complete heedlessness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where we're just doing whatever we feel like doing because I want to do it, and I just feel like it's okay, and I just follow my desires. This is that ghafla. That's what Allah warns us about. So I want us to look at this example of inward-outward with regards to that. Let us say that we hear a great lecture on the virtues of memorizing Quran. MashaAllah, we have a lot of hafaz around us, so I'm sure we could quickly gather 15, 20 different excellent reasons why all of us would want to memorize the Quran. Certainly having intercession on the Day of Judgment, having our ranks raised in Jannah, all of the barakah and good deeds just by reciting. Just a few of the great benefits of memorizing Quran. No Muslim would disagree that it would be greatly advantageous and beneficial to memorize Quran, to read more Quran. Now, when we hear these things, what's our first inclination? Our first inclination as a people of belief would be, I need to read more Quran. You know what? I should try to memorize more Quran. MashaAllah, look at all these benefits. It's going to help me. I want to do it. Now, if we honor that choice, then we're fulfilling our fitrah. We're being outward because we're honoring that choice of saying, yes, I'm going to make an effort to read more Quran, to memorize more Quran because I see the benefit. On the other hand, if we betray that choice, we decide, no, I'm not going to, then what starts to happen? So when we betray that fitrah, then we start to look at our fitrah, so again, kind of casting our inside self as two people, just like we did with the example of coming home and someone asking us for help, and we start to look at them like, oh, you're lazy and so forth. We start to look at our fitrah in that negative light, that inclination, and we start to say, well, you're too ambitious. Self fitrah, don't be so gullible. There's a lot of hadith maybe that are trying to exaggerate the good and, don't believe everything you hear and so forth. And surely it's not going to be just memorizing Quran that's going to elevate you. There's so many other pieces that have to be put in place. There's other ayahs in the Quran too that talk about the importance of working hard. And, even in the Quran, Allah excuses the people who don't stand up in the last third of the night because they have to go and they have to go and work in the earth, right? So we start to tell our fitrah, look, don't get so high and mighty. We're just a common person. Maybe those ayahs are great for some people, but we're a common person. And then how does we see the nafs? Because remember we said the nafs is always the hero of its own story. So our nafs might be saying, I have a lot of work to do, but I'm just human. But I do a lot of other good things. Remember that sadaqah we gave last week? And we passed on that link about the virtues of Quran to somebody else. So inshallah, when they take advantage of those reminders, then we'll get the barakah for that too. And you know what? I'm just going to, in fact, work really hard and become a successful businessman, and then I'll make a big donation to a hifz school, down the road when I have lots of extra money, then I'll do that as well. So we keep doing what? Justifying. I justify to myself why I'm not going to go ahead and actually take some action and read some more Quran. Because I'm going to get to it, but later. When I'm older, once I've retired, then I'll have plenty of time to just sit in the masjid and memorize Quran and so forth. Again, that red flag, justification. Even when it's applied to our own self, when we have to start justifying why we aren't doing that good thing that we're supposed to, that should be the red flag for us to say, wait a minute, I'm turning inward to my own self, and I'm not being outward to benefit my own self when it comes to virtuous good deeds. And here's the real problem, and this is really the challenge with this idea of ghafla or heedlessness, that as I turn away from this good deed, I carry those feelings, those justifications, into the next good deed. So I've just heard that lecture on memorizing and reading more Quran, and then the next day someone comes and says, brother, we need some donations, we have some people in need, the masjid is in need, whatever the good virtuous cause is, and we need your donation, please help. But those feelings from yesterday have carried forward, and already now my nafs is saying, that would be great too, and you know what, as soon as we get wealthy, remember after we get our successful business plan and we become super wealthy, then we'll come back and give to that cause. And you know what, we have an aman, I got to take care of the family, they have needs, Eid is coming up, we have all of these expenses, so inshallah we'll give, it is a good cause, I'm going to forward that link to that other guy as well, maybe he can donate, we'll get some of the reward for that, and again I carry that forward. And guess what happens the next good deed that comes up? You guessed it, the nafs is going, yep, that one too, we're going to hold off for today. Inshallah, boy, when we retire, we've got a big list of things we're going to do. But in the meantime, I'm going to forward that link to this other guy. Hopefully he'll take advantage of it, but I'm not going to. And what happens is slowly, we enter this state of complete ghafla, of complete heedlessness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by the way, the flip side is true. We're called to do something haram. We see something that we shouldn't be doing, and we know we shouldn't be doing. And if we honor ourselves, that outward mentality, we say, I'm not going to do it. I turn away, no thank you, I'm not interested. I avert my gaze, I leave the bad situation. And then the nafs goes, yeah, but we're just human, and we need some entertainment, and it's not such a big deal, and it's a minor sin, and remember the brother did say something about, Allah forgives all the sins even if they reach the heavens. There was a hadith about that, and Allah is Ghafurun Rahim. And the nafs suddenly becomes a scholar in Islam on all the ayahs on forgiveness and why it's okay to indulge just a little bit, and it's not that big of a deal. And you know what? When we get older, let's add Hajj to our list. We'll get all of our bad deeds forgiven. You know what? We're good to go. And again, the next time we're called to something bad, the nafs goes, you know what? We can add this to that retirement list, and we'll go ahead and indulge just a little bit because we're just human, and it makes those excuses, and we carry that onward. So the key, and I'll end with this, my dear brothers and sisters, is that we have to catch ourselves when we're behaving inward. This inward mentality where we're just focused on a dunya perspective, and we've really forgotten the akhirah. We have to catch ourselves in that moment. And when we catch ourselves with this justification, okay, that's the key. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَانظُرْهُمْ يَوْمَ الْحَسْرَةِ إِذَا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ وَهُمْ فِي غَفْلَةٍ وَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Hence, warn them of the day of regrets. Remember I told you one of the names of the day of judgment is the day of regrets, يَوْمَ الْحَسْرَ. Warn them of the day of regrets when everything will have been decided. For as yet they are heedless and they do not believe in it. This is the warning, my dear brothers and sisters. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, take care, watch out, this day of regrets is coming. Be careful of heedlessness, the state of ghafla. And the real danger of it is that we get caught up in it and we're unaware that we're engulfed in it. And this is why it's so critical that we catch those red flags. When am I justifying? When am I making excuses? And I have to stop myself. It has to be internal. Other people can come all day long and say, you're doing this, brother, you're doing this. We'll never hear them. We have to catch ourselves. We have to say, you know what? Am I justifying? What excuses am I making? Why am I not taking action? And in doing that, inshallah, then we have an awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have taqwa, God consciousness, which inshallah then drives us to that good behavior. And that's the evidence of it. Are we doing the good? Then alhamdulillah, inshallah, we're in a state of awareness with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَقُولُوا قَوْلَ هَذَا وَاسْتَغْفِرُ لِي وَلَكُمْ. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And may Allah make us to be amongst those who are mindful, people of taqwa, and may He enter us into the highest level of Jannah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from ever being in a state of heedlessness, even for a moment. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.